It was a creed written into the founding documents that declared the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered as though
Thank you. Thank you. My fellow citizens,
in light of the recent election and hearing the inauguration speech, Obama talks a lot about this whole collective responsibility. And yeah, him getting elected was one challenge, but that's not what's going to bring change to America. So I guess how much do you feel that people are going to take this whole collective responsibility idea to heart and actually change some of their behaviors, or, you know, seek to contribute to larger society, or volunteer, do whatever it takes to sort of get things out of shambles?
To be honest, I believe that people who are responsible people have been responsible way before Barack Obama became president.
Mm-hmm.
He's president because responsible people encourage non-responsible people to get it together.
So we should just go ahead and do the introduction. So this is our, what, fourth episode of Tangent?
Yeah.
Nice. This is our fourth episode of Tangent. A lot of big changes happening recently, and we have two perfect people to talk about it today.
To my left, we have Skylar Parkhurst. You want to say a little bit about yourself?
I'm a senior here at Skidmore. I'm the co-president of the Skidmore Young Republican Assembly, also the college's honorary commissioner, and I write a column in Skidmore News.
Nice. You're not very involved, are you?
Try not to be.
Try not to be.
Oh boy. And I'm Danny. I'm co-founder of Hip Hop Alliance, president, and I write a blog, hiphoponmymine.blogspot.com.
Nice. I'm Sarah.
I'm Katarra.
You guys, you know,
I mean, it's our show.
for what it's worth. For what it's worth, definitely. So, I guess we wanted to start with the concept of we're in the middle of the 100 days, the 3-week mark into the 100 days of the new administration, and things have been definitely happening, I would say, or not really, but the world is.
There have been things going on,
happening,
you know, however you want to take that, I guess. One of the things we kind of like to start with, because it's been tossed around, you know, the general lexicon a lot these days, is this concept of citizenship. And I know you mentioned that you're writing your thesis on citizenship, and I guess
to a certain degree.
To a certain degree, we wanted to get an idea of what your respective ideas on citizenship were and how they're, you know, I don't know, how to interpret them in this whole idea of collective citizenship and what we're all supposed to be doing in this new, see, it's so weird with all these words.
Yeah, it's like
a
a lot
change and new and blah. So,
it's kind of like, it feels like hyperbole, but at the same time, you know,
you don't really know
it's
what other words
evident
to
that,
use.
yeah,
Well,
it's evident that things need to happen, so.
Well, I think with the whole citizenship debate, we've sort of lost track of what the word really means. So nowadays, even at the college, you hear people saying, well, we're all citizens, we're all members of this community. And at the same time, we don't have anything that binds us together. Especially on a college campus, there in governments, you have a couple things that will bind people together. You can have religion, you can have just principles that everyone adheres to. You can have language and other things, geographical, that you know, in some way bind people together. And the problem that we've come across now is that we think just by talking to each other, we can overcome all those differences, and we're somehow members of the same community. While still seeing that we have differences in everything that can unite us. Yeah. So what's interesting now is we have lost track of that idea of citizenship, and that in the United States we're citizens because we all agree on the basic ideas of liberal democracy and adhering to the principles of our Constitution. We sort of thought, well, we can move beyond that. We can be citizens of the world. Yeah. Not everyone in the world agrees.
Well, I mean,
so,
yeah, that's obvious. I mean, it's obvious that the world doesn't agree, but at the same time, I mean, you were saying that that you don't think that we can be a community because we disagree on a lot of fundamentals.
We
but
have to agree on things.
Yeah,
in
we
order to be
do.
a community, we have to agree.
Yeah.
And if we're actively promoting all these differences, well, where are we agreeing? Are we agreeing that we like differences, but what if those differences come into conflict? How are we a community then? So community has to be more about, in citizenship, more than talking with each other. We still have to agree on some fundamental level.
Right. Well, that kind of leads to the stalemate that's happening right now in Congress, like moving beyond partisanship.
Well, it's not necessarily. We still, in Congress, everyone in Congress still, for the most part, agrees that on these basic principles. They disagree about the issues. No one's questioning whether or not liberal democracy is the best regime. Sure, there are a couple people who are claiming Marxism and tying that with rights, which doesn't make any sense. But for the most part, everyone sort of agrees on that. And the partisanship thing, it's people have different ideas, and they both parties really want to do what they think is best for the country.
Yeah.
So the debate now is what's best.
Yeah. What do you think is best?
Fix it, Danny.
What do you think, Danny? Come on.
Well, really, you mean like on citizenship?
I
so
mean,
many different things is just thrown out there.
Well,
Well, you know,
well, it's all interconnected. It's hard to like put out one concept without putting out another. Yeah.
like when it comes to citizenship, I think it sort of redefines itself with each generation. In the sense of like, let's say in the 50s, it was all about, let's fight communism, combat communism, because that's what the thing was with Senator Joe McCarthy. And in the 60s, it sort of became like, wanted to
Protests like the Vietnam War and
you know, all these
civil
different
rights.
things. You know, so it sort of changes back and forth from being all about like self-interest, self-protection to like what you were saying earlier, citizens of the world.
So basically, we're wondering whether or not people are going to take this whole collective responsibility thing.
To heart?
Yeah.
I think more of the younger people will be apt to do it than older people. I think people that actually voted for Obama will do it, but I still think it's going to take a long time. I think it would be fantastic if it slowly crept into the consciousness of everybody, because that'll make it just, you know, better for everybody.
I think it's one of the things that I found really appealing about his speech and about sort of his message in general was that you can't just sort of sit back and expect a country to get better without your participation.
The masses tend to kind of swing with whatever's going on, the energy at the time. And unless you're being directly affected, a lot of people tend to not feel like it's their responsibility to act. Not that I have a pessimistic view, because, hey, you never know. People might just feel like, 2009, I want to be different, I want to do something different. I really do care about my neighborhood, and I feel like I can make a difference. Because if people don't feel like they can personally do something, they're not going to. Exactly, because they're going to feel like, well, that's not my forte.
You know, I think we're at a very interesting point in American history. We are at the apex of a powerful change that could bring about, you know, a massive, you know, realignment in our country's history.
No. No, I mean, I think what he did was get a lot of people's support, and well, I think our generation is now more politically motivated, but I don't know if necessarily you know, there's only so much that we can do. Getting a president elected is one of our rights, and you know, as college students, as recent graduates, it's hard because there's not much that we can do.
It's very interesting because I think President Barack Obama brings a different sense of citizenship to the table in terms of the whole idea of community service and like more so it seems like he's targeting more so kids our age, you know, students our age, as to wanting to mobilize and make change from the ground up. You know, but when it comes to the whole concept of like 50 days or whatever we're at right now, it's been very interesting because there's been some positive and some negative things, like some of the things that I actually heard about the stimulus plan. Like some of the things are just not needed, and then I totally can agree with that on the Republican part. You know,
$200 million for Filipino veterans living in the Philippines. Really? No.
$200 million for veterans living in the Philippines?
Veterans of World War II, Filipino citizens who are living in the Philippines. We're giving them $200 million. Just a small item.
Well, I mean, $800 billion is a lot. Covers a lot.
True, but then that's coming out of the taxpayers, you know,
Yeah.
pockets, and with already what happened with what's the thing called the bailout, which ended up being horrible as well, you know, in terms of all these companies going on vacations and giving their top executives large bonuses. So that's where I can agree with Obama in terms of capping the salary for these senior executives. But there's been some things I can't remember off the top of my head, but one of the things that I found I'm really, really glad about the administration so far is this act that he signed into law. It was the very first act, I think, talking about the whole unfair wages between women and people of color and everything else like that. So he said this act into place that's not supposed to happen anymore, you know. So I think that's sort of a great change of things that's been happening, that's been plaguing our society for so many years, you know. Because it's like, you know, women will get paid for the same work that men will do, but then get paid less type of thing. Yeah, but I don't know where I went, what I just said.
No, I mean, it all makes sense because, you know, we were all getting to the kind of crisis that's happening over putting forth this economic stimulus plan right now, and you know, we see that there's a desperate need in terms of like there being a 17-year low of or high rather of unemployment, and you know, last month 600,000 jobs were lost.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's clearly a desperate need for there to be something big, but you know, I think you're right in that there is this like kind of spending.
Well, what's going on is a lot of the spending has just been for programs that everyone's arguing over whether or not these programs are really going to help the economy. Some of them obviously won't. There are some that really will, and then there are those little ones that everyone's debating over. As I mentioned, the $200 million for Filipino veterans. There are other things like that, which is
like to replant the green in front of the White House at 2001.
for the National Mall.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Improving the aesthetics of the National Mall.
I mean, that type of spending can go towards people who are really like are real knees deep into the recession here, like waist deep or whatever.
There's actually a figure that came out today, though. This is really interesting because this stimulus bill actually isn't that much compared to what we've already spent and have promised to spend. Right now, the whole bailout that we've come up with from what we've already spent, which is about 3 to 4 billion, 3 to 4 trillion, sorry, up to what we will spend, it comes out to about $9.7 trillion. I just sort of figured that's enough money to pay off 90% of American citizens' mortgages. And what are we doing? We're putting it towards programs like Nancy Pelosi wanted to have programs for contraceptives. And her whole argument, she gave this argument on 60 Minutes, was, oh, so there could be less children born, less to pay. So it's like, okay, let's. That's where we go a little bit far. That luckily was taken out though. We're not spending our money on that.
It was like, I don't know. I think the stimulus plan was rushed. It should have been something that should have been really looked at. Because I just feel like it's just something that just wanted to get through. I think it's crazy, you know, that out of all those hundreds of Republicans in the House of Representatives, not one of them voted.
There are a few Democrats that voted against it as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But right now in the Senate, it looks like there are 3 Republicans that have switched over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's like 60 votes, and it's really funny. We talked about the bipartisanship thing very briefly, and the promise was we're going to move beyond what President Bush and past presidents have done, which was, okay, I have a bill that needs to be passed. So what Bush would do is say, I'm going to get a couple Democrats over to my side, and we can get over the 60 votes, so we can filibuster, we can move on.
Yeah.
Same thing's happening now. Every president before has done this.
What we really need to focus on is what can we do to help President Obama? What can we do to, assist his change? Because what people tend to forget is that he is a mortal man. He is like every one of us.
He's like
and that
deified and
exactly
he's like this icon now.
He's become an icon, and what we need, people need to realize is that we need to actively do our part as citizens of this nation to bring about the change that we wish to see. It's all in the words of Mahatma Gandhi. You know, he said, "Be the change you wish to see," and that's exactly what we need to be doing at this point in time.
I mean, it makes sense that like this whole call to arms and people getting all inspired, but it's not like we're collectively being inspired. I mean, we're inspired to all vote, and a lot of people are inspired to vote for him, evidently, but I could see it just sort of ending up being like, okay, now this guy's gonna do it. Sick.
Yeah.
Thank you for cleaning up the mess.
Because people, seems like they really want something and they want to get involved, but especially under Bush administration, there really was very little way to know how to, especially for like our generation who's grown up not seeing change and not participating in change. So hopefully, I'm hoping that if we get a vehicle and someone to reach out to us, I think that our generation will reach back, and not everyone will, but I think that we will.
It's like creeping into consciousness a little bit.
Yeah, I think that people want it, they just didn't know how.
Duties that we do not grudgingly accept, but rather seize gladly, firm in the knowledge that there is nothing so satisfying to the spirit, so defining of our characters, than giving our all to a difficult task.
Yes, we can.
This is the price and the promise of citizenship.
Like, I'm very curious as to why there's so much pressure on him now. Like, there was never really so focused on 100 days of President George Bush, or like
the 100 days thing actually began with FDR.
Yeah.
And it was because in the first 100 days he passed all sorts of legislation, and he went a little bit too far. And other terms of his were the quarterbacking plan, trying to add judges because all his things were being ruled unconstitutional. That didn't work.
Yeah. And then it was followed by
trying to break the whole government. That just didn't work for him a little too far. But the first 100 days he accomplished a whole lot. So now presidents are judged, I don't think it's fairly, but whether it's fair or not, they're being judged in the first 100 days. Are you living up to FDR? That's the implicit statement. And
I was reading about JFK today, and it was saying that he was really nervous during his first 100 days because he was being held up to that gold standard. So, you know, it's every person who like comes out of a time of change is like, you know, kind of the 100 days are doubly, you know, there's a way bigger standard for them.
Yeah, Reagan's chapter, for example, he was trying to pass an economic relief package as well.
Yeah.
And well, if he hadn't gotten shot, it probably would have passed. Something we stood up in front of both houses of Congress, said he could barely speak and was very quiet. This was a few weeks after he had just been shot, almost died. So this has happened before. There's no bipartisanship then. We really haven't had such a thing like that in the past. But the whole thing that's different with Obama about the bipartisanship is he promised to work for this.
Yeah.
Past presidents have done that. Bush promised it. He couldn't deliver. It's sort of the question of, can this actually be delivered upon? Are there really these differences between our ideas that can be overcome?
It's just
I think we're just seeing now that there's a lot more than a lot of people think. It's not, you know, we can all just get along.
Yeah.
It's not a rosy picture as everyone once thought it was.
What do you think, Danny? I think it's a moving picture.
I don't know, it's weird because it's I feel like that whole bipartisan idea is possible, but it sort of takes time to build up. It's like you have a whole bunch of new congressmen, you have a new administration, so things are not going to happen within 100 days of, you know, big magic happen. Like, it takes time to sit down and actually get the ball rolling.
Katarra, you look like you
Yeah, I guess I am kind of mulled some things over. I suppose, like in the context of, you know, the outgoing/incoming administrations, a lot, like whenever I think of government and how the setup is and how things work and people being on either side, I don't know, it always just feels so generational. And I think maybe it's from a personal perspective, or, you know, just being able to kind of go out on a limb and make an effort to hear other sides and come to some sort of agreement across things. It seems like it really shouldn't be that hard, but I also, and of course, no, it's like, it shouldn't be, but of course it is, like, especially in the context of, you know, the way the government is set up. You know, I totally understand that that's how that works, but I don't know, it always astounds me that sometimes like personal beliefs can get in the way so much. And it's not even that, you know, people are trying to be stubborn or anything so much as they believe everyone is trying to do what they think is right. And when those things are in conflict, then that's where the tension happens.
Well, like the stimulus debate is, the Republicans on the right want to have more tax cuts. And they want to have less spending. So they want to have the same amount of money, theoretically, just through different means. Democrats want to spend the money. And some more Republicans that would help out if, you know, we had a little bit less spending, a little more tax cuts. And that's about as far as you can go as compromise is concerned.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look as if that's going to happen, because it looks as if tomorrow we're actually going to see the stimulus passed.
Yeah.
Passed in the Senate, and passed in the Senate will hammer out an agreement.
They said, I kind of like you were saying earlier that, oh, and I guess this is a positive thing for moving beyond partisanship, is that I can't remember which senator said, but he said that there's 90% agreement, or there's agreement between the both parties on 90% of it at this point. It's just the last 10% that needs to be argued out. So it's like,
well, the arguments are closing tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So
fortunately, it's not.
But we're 90% together.
Well, it looks as if, according to the polls, the American people do not like the stimulus.
Yeah.
Especially the Rasmussen poll that came out last night. It was like 37% of the American people actually like the stimulus plan. I think it's actually going to help the economy, which is sad.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is just how it's so much easier to access this type of information now. Like, for me at least, you know, I find like the whitehouse.gov to be very user friendly and to the point, you know. Like,
and it's cool looking too.
Yeah, you know. So I see all these different things that's going on. No, I mean I see like all these different things that's going on, like, and definitely like the YouTube channel. I don't know if you guys know that there's a YouTube channel for it. So
he has his BlackBerry.
Yeah, you
it's
know,
very
so
tech savvy and
all these different things that's going on. Like I think it's pretty cool. It definitely keeps people like me more focused on what's going on with the administration. But really, like, I didn't know that it was gonna go to voting tomorrow, but that's very, very interesting. But I don't know where I'm going with this, but really,
that there's hope.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what results out of that tomorrow, and what the real Texas stimulus package will be, and see I mean, I don't know if I will actually see the results in terms of, you know, coming down to my level, but
The budget office said over the next 2 years, the stimulus, as it stood a few days ago, would actually help. But then after that, we're going to run into some problems because our national debt is going to be hiked up so much.
Yeah.
So that's where that issue comes.
And I mean, what does that mean for our kids? Because they're going to have to deal with that debt.
The four of us here have a lot of money to pay off.
Yeah, and we're also moving into like the worst economy in 17 years. So.
Well, the United States credit rating actually went down.
Seniors.
It's harder for the country to get money now. Yeah. So. Hopefully it's a little scary too.
Yeah. Well, should we do closing comments, I guess? I mean, I think that we've really covered a lot of ground, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. I mean, you know, I think everyone is just hoping that it all turns out for the best and trying to be engaged as citizens to make sure that our government uses our money wisely.
Yeah, it's just a question of what's the best way. It's nice to see that you actually have people in the country who do care about what to do and what's best for everyone. So partisanship, maybe it's not necessarily a bad thing if people are arguing over the best way to do something.
Yeah.
Well, I think when we talk about citizenship, I think there sort of needs to be an understanding between each other and what exactly what citizenship means. And it's sort of like, okay, so we want to be able to do community service, keep close to the administration, and talk to a lot of senators and representatives, and do what we need to do as an American people within our means. Of course, some people don't really have the capability all the time to do these type of things, but if they do, then we'll stop them. It's sort of like the whole voting thing we talked about yesterday. I think it was either 1960s. I mean, not yesterday. In one of my classes, 1960s or some other class. Like we get all these rights grants to us through the amendments, but one of the things, voting, is like optional. So we have to sort of take that to advantage, and you sort of seen that like with this past election. So sort of becoming responsible citizens and not just falling for the okie doke.
Falling for the okie doke?
Yeah, not falling for the okie doke.
Oh, I like that phrase. That's really good. I like that. Katarra.
I think what it is, like, real quick, I think what it is that people sometimes just oh, everything's just gonna be alright, and just move on with what they think is on a personal level. But like I said before, we need to sort of stand on that. And sometimes people need to give it back as well, because if we don't give it back, then how we expect to get through like the recession and everything else like that? Because we all need each other to get through these hard times. Sorry,
No, it's fine. I was still mulling over your little catchphrase there, and I think that
it's his catchphrase.
Yeah.
I can't take any credit for it.
I guess just that whole idea, coming back to citizenship and everything. Collective responsibility tied with this idea of knowing that the government really is just a bunch of people who are trying to figure out what the best way to conduct things is for all of us is.
But we don't tell them how they're supposed to know.
Well, I mean,
Elect people to do that for us. Otherwise, we'd have direct democracy. So many people seem to forget these days. That's why
dear.
I've always said that it's best to have leaders who don't just look at polls to make their decisions. You want people who are capable of thinking, this is what I think is right. I don't care if I don't get reelected. I'm going to do what's right. Maybe if you do what's right, that's seen as right.
Definitely
Good job.
Yeah.
See, there is common ground.
That's why we are a country.
High five.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming by. I really appreciate it. It was a good little chat, good little tangent. Good little tangent. I'm cheesy. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Later.
Oh, that was
perfect. Thank you so much.
Shameless. Still fighting through blue fog.
definitely the young people, what? We are on it. On it.
For sure.